So, first Marvel movie of 2023. Was this everything we'd hoped for? Was this the one to get us back on track? Or was it not so much? What's up, guys, and welcome to my review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Thank you so much, guys, for clicking here. I really do appreciate it. After Scott Lang and his family are sucked into the quantum realm, they encounter the very deadly Kang the Conqueror, which forces them to fight and stop him from entering our world and creating world domination, as most of these villains always tend to do. First and foremost, this has got to be said, I've heard rumors weeks ahead of the film's release saying that this is the new Civil War, Captain America Civil War, and how close that movie was. I heard that this film was so much like that. Was it really? Really? I have no idea what they were watching. I have no idea what they were seeing when they wrote that article. I mean, you can look it up. It's clear as day. It was all over Facebook. It was all over the media. And just people comparing this to Captain America Civil War, and I don't know what the hell they were watching. Not I'm saying that this movie was horrible, was bad, but to compare it to how great that film was, how great Civil War was, it's a bit of a stretch. Before I get into all the things that annoyed me, which is always a given, especially the state of Marvel nowadays, let's start off with the positives for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And first and foremost, this has got to be said, and this is every freaking where that I have read, this is what every reviewer, this is what every YouTuber has said, and I gotta agree. Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror was excellent. He was awesome. He's one of those household names that's just really blowing up. I mean, left and right, Jonathan Majors. And the way he played this character in this movie was perfect. Again, I've gone on length by saying that I'm not, by any stretch, a comic book fan. So, before this movie came out, I had no idea who this character was. But just the way that he portrayed the character in this film was great. He was a villain that I could get behind. He was a villain that I'd love to hate, and I always want that in my movies. I've gone on length to saying how good a villain I always appreciate, and that's what Jonathan Majors brings to the role of Kang the Conqueror. And you know, I've heard others say, comparing to Thanos, they're kind of hand to hand, but Kang is a little bit more on the evil side of just for the hell of it. Where with Thanos, the reason why he did what he did, he wanted to evaporate half the world so that the rest of us could live better, so that the rest of us could use sources a little bit better and not go into poverty and this and that, not go to bed hungry. Where Kang, he's doing what he's doing just for the hell of it, just because he's just evil as hell. That's about the only difference I can really compare the two. In a way, Kang is more evil. And even though we've only got like the first film that starts this storyline, this particular storyline of Kang, I can tell that this character is going to be a major pain in the Avengers' butt here soon. If I'm not mistaken. I don't know what direction that they're actually going to plan on bringing this character, but it just looks like it's like the new start of a new phase. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually like the first phase of Phase 5. I heard it was. I'm not really sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I want to say that this film, particular film, is the first phase of Phase 5. The first of Phase 5. But yeah, like I said, Thanos was only concerned about the population, and he was more about stability. There you go. He was more about stability, where Kang is just doing it for the hell of it, and he just wants it all. So Kang doesn't really have a sensible purpose that Thanos had. I'm already getting the feeling that this villain is probably going to be the most dangerous because of that. As tough as Thanos was, and he was tough, he was a force to be reckoned with. Kang might have a run for his money, but we'll see. We'll see. Point being, Jonathan Majors, thumbs up. The effects, surprisingly, was good. Rolling into this, I knew where the story was going. I knew that the whole film was going to take place in the quantum realm, which nothing was going to be real. The whole entire film is not, unless like the first 10 minutes, it does not take place in the real world. It takes place in this superly heavily digital CGI place. And rolling into this, I thought that this was going to be a major bummer. It was going to be overstuffed, silly, cheesy, over-the-top, messy CGI. And surprisingly enough, it wasn't. Aside from maybe one or two scenes, which is hardly worth a mention, it was really good. And it made the action actually worth it. It doesn't fall into that trap that a lot of us was worried about. But the action was pretty solid because of that. And I was really relieved. I was super relieved to, actually not have that feeling to where I was watching a CGI overstuffed mess. It was actually pretty good. It was actually worth it. It was very beautiful to look at. It was done very well, and I gotta give them props. It felt like it was something that somebody actually took their time with instead of rushing it, because you can always tell when it's rushed. But this didn't feel like that. I was definitely surprised. It was definitely a big fat relief. And yeah, that's all I can say about that. It just really popped for me. There, now I'm done saying that piece. I liked where the story was headed. They basically go to this quantum realm, a place to where Michelle Pfeiffer's character spent like the last 30 years in between the events of the first two movies. You get to see what all she had to deal with, what she had to put up with, and all the stuff that she just went through all those years when she was stuck in it. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I liked seeing that aspect, that part of the storyline that kind of like, fulfilled it in a way. It was just a direction that I really did appreciate. And, from the moment when the plot synopsis for this film was being revealed, when they were making it, I was thinking to myself, damn, this is actually going to be pretty interesting, and that it was. Peyton Reed, as a director, really done justice for this character. I really liked what he did with this character. I really liked what he did in the MCU as a whole for this character. And the front and center characters, Paul Rudd, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, Evangeline Lilly, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. All of them did well, especially Paul Rudd. Now, you don't get, and this may be a bummer for some people, but not really for me, but you don't really get that kind of sarcastic, snarky, funny side. Well, I wouldn't say fun side, but funny side to Scott Lang, to Paul Rudd's character that you got in the first two and in the MCU altogether. But given the circumstances of where the story led and the danger that his family was being put through, I think it makes sense that you get more of like just a serious character from Paul Rudd, especially different from what he brought in the first two films. And I think it made sense for this film. I understand that to a lot of people that might be a bummer. I've already seen a couple of YouTubers who've done reviews about this that definitely put that in their negatives, but not this guy. I actually liked it. I actually liked what he brought to the character for this film. To me, it just works for the type of environment that this film brought. Now, as we dive into the mixed, and if I'm being very honest, which I always try to do in my videos, I never felt the hype. I never felt like that this lived up to the actual hype. Now, as I said at the beginning of this review, some people, not a lot, but I was seeing articles to where some people was comparing this to Captain America Civil War, or one of the past Avengers movie that we've already got that was... Again, this may sound like I'm beating this movie down, which I'm really not, but because of the hype, I just can't help but say this. But compared to those awesome films, which was kind of like 10 times better, I wouldn't have gone that far. And because of that, it just kind of got me a little disappointed. Now, again, I'm not beating this movie down. It had its moments. It definitely had its moments. I definitely enjoyed where the story went and what Paul Rudd did, and as a story as a whole and how the film made me feel. I enjoyed all that. And like the way the action was and the way the effects looked and especially with Jonathan Major's character, it had its moments. But I just don't feel like it deserved the hype that it did, because when comparing to Captain America Civil War or any of the other Avengers movies, those are a little better. And it just, I think it was a little bit of an over-exaggeration comparing this film to those. It's all I'm saying. But again, it was definitely not a major disappointment. It was not terrible. I just don't feel like it deserved the hype that it did. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania was not the worst one I've seen. Believe me. Trust me. I'm looking at you, Thor: Love and Thunder. They just should not have hyped up this movie as much as they did. Now I get why they did it. You always want to market your movie the best way you can. But they could have just toned it down just a little. Touches me. And the humor and jokes, like with the past few Marvel films, some of them did land, but most of them didn't. And I just feel like in some scenes they were trying too hard, but then what makes it in the mix was like other scenes actually did work. Like there's this whole middle scene where you see it in the trailer where Scott Lang actually faces himself, which without getting too much detail, I'm not going to spoil anything, it's a spoiler-free review, but that scene right there was actually pretty funny. It actually got the most chuckles out of me, which is why I'm putting this in the mix. Otherwise, it would be in the negatives. But again, like with so many of the recent Marvel films, the jokes just doesn't really land that much for me anymore anyway. But it was not terrible. Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, folks, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the inevitable, the negatives. I felt like there was no place whatsoever for some of the characters in this. Some of the characters that Scott Lang and his family had met in this place, as hard as I try to wrap my brain around these characters throughout the whole entire film, throughout the whole entire runtime, I just never felt like they had a place, like their existence was just meaningless. No matter how many times I kept on replaying this in my head, especially after watching the film, no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to stand my ground. There was just no sense to have these characters in the film at all. I didn't feel like they had a purpose. I didn't feel like they benefited the story that much. No matter how hard I tried, I gotta be honest, I just didn't really feel like there was much of a purpose at all for these characters. And here's the major one that really pissed me off, and I hear a lot of people saying the same thing. MODOK. Oh my god, that was the most stupidest, dumbest thing I've ever seen. This head-like thing that just looks cheesy, and every time it showed up, I cringed so hard. I thought I was going to try to heave a little bit. It just looked so stupid. Why would you have it look like that? And apparently this was a character that most people was kind of looking forward to, and you make it looking like that. Not to mention the backstory to what this thing was. Again, no spoilers here, but I thought that was just ridiculous within itself. I did not care at all. It did not have any place for me in the film whatsoever. And again, I did not care. I don't care. Completely useless. Every time it showed up, I just wanted to giggle out of sheer shame. The thought of something like this actually being thought of and actually making it into this film. The thought that something like this actually appeared in this film was actually thought of, it's just amazing. In a very bad way. But in the end, guys, I did have fun with this movie, despite those terrible things. I did have fun in this movie. I really did. Don't get me wrong. Don't ever get that wrong. I had fun in this movie. It had its moments, for sure. But if I'm being honest, it wasn't amazing. It was no Civil War. Don't believe the hype. But it wasn't terrible. Just be on the fence. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, what was your thoughts on it? Have you seen this yet? Are you somebody that loved this? Are you one of those that agreed with the hype that it was actually another Civil War or Avengers? And if so, please tell me the reason. I'd really like to understand. I know we're all different, but please make me understand. Or was this not for you? Was this just another fluke? Leave me a comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much once again guys for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share the big 4. And make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.